The hour, a funeral for the N-word. Today at the 98th Annual Convention of the NAACP in Detroit, African-American leaders, intellectuals, and rap artists will join together for a symbolic burial of the N-word. Will it make a difference? Joining us now from Washington is Dr. Michael Eric Dyson of Georgetown University. He is the author of Know What I Mean, Reflections on Hip Hop. Also joining us from Chicago is CNN contributor Roland Martin. He's the host of the Roland Martin Radio Show. And by the way, the segment's being simulcast right now on WVON Radio. Roland, let me start with you. Why is this taking place now?
Well, because, we've had lots of discussion about it, of course, out of the Don Imus situation in terms of what words you can and cannot say. And so it's a raising of the consciousness of African Americans in terms of the use of the word, finding it offensive. You know, when I ran the Chicago Defender as executive editor, I put it on our front page saying that it's time for African Americans to make a decision. Either we say it is an acceptable word or we say it is not. But you have to make a decision because some find it offensive, while others say, hey, it's a term of endearment. I disagree. I find it offensive, and I personally stop using it.
Dr. Dyson, what are your views on the word, and is this symbolic burial a good idea?
Well, I think that it may be a good idea for white America. I think white America or other non-black people certainly should bury the use of that particular nefarious term that has been odious and offensive throughout the history. But I think that for African American people, the use of that term has sometimes been, yes, as a term of endearment. I know Mr. Martin disagrees with that, but having used the word myself and he having used it, as he said himself, and stopped using it, obviously one of the uses was a term of endearment, a term of love, a term of circulating brotherhood. It also can be something that's negative. My point is that you can't legislate the use of the word itself to deal with the realities that the word underscores. So that lynching is much worse than the use of the word. I'm not saying that the word is used by white people is not offensive. It is. I'm saying, but African American rappers or other people who deploy that term are not necessarily signifying hatred. They're signifying love. They're saying, I'm not going to let you determine my life by the use of a word over which I have no control.
Curtis Blow.
But John, let me sort of put this.
Yeah, go ahead.
John, I want to put it in context in a bit. That in terms of growing up, in terms of you hearing it at the park and in school, all over the place, it became so ingrained. But growing up, my dad didn't call me that. My mom didn't call me that. They called me Roland. And so I reached a point where, again, it was so much a part of hearing it, it became accepted. And I reached a point where I said, wait a minute, this is not a word that I should accept. Even if somebody said, hey, that's my man, that's my boy, I'd rather use those phrases than frankly saying, that's my nigga. It's just not a term of endearment.
But for Roland, for you, that's absolutely fine. I'm not suggesting that that's not a prerogative you exercise, but to suggest that's a universal term that everybody has to subscribe to would be different. I think that if you feel that way, that's fine, but there are many other African American people, which is why it shows you that the burying of the N-word will not be effective. There will be some. Martin Luther King Jr., the night he was killed, said to Andrew Young, little nigga, where you been? He used it as a term of endearment. Now, there's a difference because rap music has now made it accessible to the world because of its circulation throughout the country and indeed throughout the globe. But the point is to have I think, a reductive and narrow and simplistic understanding of that term misses the use of it by history and suggests to us that white people exercise the control over our lives that we don't have. Don Imus cannot be the leader of black America. Let's, within our own ranks, suggest that there are differences and complexities and nuances that we should respect and acknowledge on both sides.
Roland, what about this idea?
Michael,
Roland, let me just interject here if I can. What about this idea of one set of rules for the white community, another for the black community? Curtis Blow, who was one of the original rap artists, said of this, quote, by reforming our minds, we will change society. By changing the way you think of yourself, you'll change the way that others think of you. So he's not in the camp of it's all right for the black community to use this. So what do you think?
Well, I think you have to remove it. I have a piece in the July issue of Ebony magazine talking about the reality that certain groups use certain words that others cannot. And so women may refer to each other as bees, but if a man says it, it's a whole different context. Hispanics may call somebody a different word that they might find offensive if I say it, but if they say it to one another, then it's not offensive. So that's a reality in terms of among groups. I prefer not to use it. So when Kanye West has a song called Gold Digger, and you have two young white girls, as Joseph Phillips talks about one of his columns, two young white girls singing a song, they're playing, they saying, I ain't messing with a gold digger, she ain't messing with a broke nigga. They're just simply repeating the words, but not fully understanding even the context. And so you might hear that and say, what are they saying? I just don't think you have to say it. You can have another word that you want to say. It's just simply not of a term endearment.
Well, let me finally say this. I think that Roland makes a very compelling point, but here's the point. Dick Gregory says, why would we remove from broad public circulation a term? Black people people didn't die for the N-word, they died for nigger. White people did not use the N-word, I'm going to kill you N-word. They said, I'm going to kill you nigger. So his point was, historically speaking, and to be linguistically accurate, you want to underscore the very term that was used to lynch black people. But beyond that, I think that what I'm suggesting simply is that I understand the sentiment of people like Brother Martin who say this is offensive, but I think we should also open our minds to say that there are ways in which that word has been used as a term not only of endearment but love and signifying solidarity and inside discourse and language that folk outside the community can't. I think white people just get upset. They now have a word that they can't use. They invented the term. We took the meaning of that term away from them. Now they want it back. And I say to them, you use the term nefariously, odiously, and offensively. Now that we've used it as a term of endearment, you can't have in. That's the restriction of your white supremacist and racist mindset. You got to deal with that.
All right. Well,
hey, John, real quick, if I can, I would ask Michael, if you had someone who you call a colleague, who's a friend, who's white, and he said, hey, Mike, what's up, my nigga? Would your response be, you're cool to say that?
Absolutely not. That's what I told you. I said white people. That's a term that is not a term that white people can use. And you know what? I don't infantilize white people. White people are grown enough to understand they can't use the term. You can't use the term. You can't go home and call your mama the B word, even if you call your girl that. The point is there are restrictions and limitations.
Yeah, your mama would certainly have something to say about
that. Yeah, she'd beat you down, brother.
Dr. Michael Eric Dyson and Roland Martin, thanks very much for that. Great opinion on both sides.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, sir.